Hello everyone, welcome to our YouTube channel Business Law Ke Funde. Today we are going to discuss about Companies Act 2013. First of all, why do we exactly need to study about Companies Act? See, the Companies Act is the law which covers the dissolution, the incorporation and the very smooth running of the companies in India. Also, Companies Act came into existence in India in 1956, but with the pace of time and certain updates in the new legislation, we have new and the updated Companies Act in 2013. So, the objectives of this new act was first of all to encourage the economic development of the country. Second one, to encourage the transparency and accountability of all the activities taking place in the company, and last but not the least, to enforce the stricter action for all the frauds and the illegal activities taking in the company. Also, this was done due to the phenomenal changes in the domestic and international economic landscape of the company. So, the government of India finally decided to replace the previous act, with the Companies Act 2013. Also, guys, I need to make it very clear that this is a compilation created for the students during the COVID-19 pandemic to enforce more smooth e-learning, and there is no intention to copy any of the material. So let's move further. So, heading towards the intensive clarification of the presentation, this presentation has been set up by Anukriti Shrivastava, Deepika Vaskale, Dheeraj Chauhan and myself Niharika Dubey under the supervision of Dr. Nisha Bano Siddiqui. Now, before heading towards the explanation of Companies Act 2013, we need to understand what company is. Company is an organization formed by a group of people with certain common goals. Also, it is a registered association which is an artificial legal person having an independent legal entity with a perpetual succession, also having a common seal for its signature, a common capital comprised of transferable shares and carrying limited liability. Now, coming to features of a company. So, we have 5 main features of company listed here as limited liability, incorporated association, common seal, artificial legal person and perpetual existing. Starting with limited liability. So, it is a type of legal structure for any of the organization where a corporate loss will not exceed the amount invested in a limited liability company. The next feature is incorporated association. Any company comes into life or comes into existence when it is legally registered under Companies Act 2013, and it requires certain very crucial and important documents like Memorandum of Association, Article of Association and many more. The next feature is common seal. See, any employee of or the staff can make the use of company's asset in a wrong manner. So to avoid this, common seal is a crucial feature of any of the company. Any document bearing the common seal of the employer will be legally binding at the agency or the company. The next feature is artificial legal person. It is said that in the eye of the regulation, a company is a specific artificial person. It has its own share, it has its own assets as well as the liabilities. The last but not the least characteristic is perpetual existence. Unlike other non-registered commercial enterprise entities, a corporation or any of the company is a stable business organization. Its lifestyle does not depend on relay upon the life shareholder, director or any of the employees. Now, talking about the types of companies. There are several ways on the basis of which we can classify company. The 3 main classification of companies are: first on the basis of incorporation, second on the basis of liability, and third on the basis of number of members. Starting with on the basis of incorporation. It means giving legal permission to a company to work by registering it within Companies Act 2013. It has 3 sub classification as chartered company, statutory companies and registered company. Starting with chartered company, these businesses are formed beneath a unique charter by way of the monarch or by way of a special order of a king or a queen. Few examples of Royal Chartered Corporations are BBC, East India Company, Bank of England, etc. The next classification is statutory companies. These businesses are incorporated by way of a special act handed via the vital or the kingdom legislation. These companies are meant to carry out a few businesses of countrywide importance, for example, the Reserve Bank of India, which became formed beneath RBI Act 1934. The third subclassification is registered or the incorporated companies. These corporations are formed or incorporated beneath the Corporations Act handed by means of the government. These corporations came into existence only after these are registered under the Act and the certificate of incorporation is surpassed via the registrar of the organization. Now, the next major classification is on the basis of liability, which actually means that the matter of concern will be the share of liability of an employee towards the company, which is further subdivided into two main classifications as company with limited liability and company with unlimited liability. When we talk about companies with limited liability, it means it is a company where the liability of the shareholder remains limited to the nominal value of the shares held by him. The example of limited liability companies are Google, Facebook, Quora, etc. On the other hand, companies with unlimited liability are when here the liabilities of its members are unlimited. In other words, the liabilities extend to their private properties also. Example, GlaxoSmithKline Service Unlimited, which is a pharmaceutical company chain. The third major classification is on the basis of number of members, which has two subclassifications, private company and the public company. When we talk about private company, it wholly owned privately by a private investor, management, founder, etc. Also, it has a smaller size. It has at least 2 and a most of 200 members. The example of private company is Reliance Industries Limited in India and also TCS. The next is public company. A public company is a corporation whose ownership is distributed among general public shareholders. It has quite a larger size and has no less. The example of public companies are Indian Oil, SDFG Bank, etc. Now, how a company is formed. The formation of a company is a very complex and yet challenging process as each stage has its own peculiarity and importance. The process of company's formation is called incorporation, which of course means the forming of a new corporation. So we have 4 main stages of company formation, namely promotion stage, incorporation stage, capital raising stage, and commencement of business. Starting with promotion stage. A company nomination is a combination or a sum of all costs associated with a company's incorporation. The promotion phase includes various phases of achieving the desired first stage results in the 4 main domains, that is mental retrieval, that is you have to make up mind of starting of a company. You have to come up with certain idea that yes, I want to now start a new company. The next domain is take actions. You have to take certain actions, that how you want to start a company, what are your field in which you are going to start a company. The third domain is detailed investigation. For an example, if I want to start a pharma company, I have to go for a deep search that what are the requirements to start a pharma company or the incorporation. And the last domain is the requirement meeting. Now, the second stage is incorporation stage, where the company's construction takes place. In this stage, it is necessary to determine the company's name, location, and legal documents. This category is very important because at this stage, companies are submitting their official documents to the registration office of the company secretary. Now, before heading towards the third stage, that is the capital raising or the funding stage of a company, we need to have a very clear picture of certain crucial documents which needs to be submitted and approved in the incorporation stage of the company formation. So, at the time of registration, various documents are required to file a company, which actually forms the registration process of the company formation. And these documents are namely named as article. The first article or the document is Memorandum of Association. A memorandum of association is a document that is regarded as the most important document of any company. This document is required at the time of the filing of any company. In this document, a proper description of the company logo and its members, names, address, technology, signatures, and all other important features are needed to be mentioned. If another company does not have this memorandum, it will not be allowed to make the registration. And as we know, a company memorandum is just as important a document as we know as a company document, and also help to secure company rights and procedures. So there are certain contents of memorandum of association, as it is known as the charter of the company. It lay down certain area of operations of the company. Also, it regulates the external affairs of the company. The next important document in the formation of the company is Article of Association. The Article of Association is another important document that is required of any company at the time of its establishment. It also includes the internal as well as various rules of the company, which are designed to carry out the activities described in company's charter. When a company is registered, this is very important to have the Article of Association, and it is crucially important to have Memorandum of Association, because these two in combined manner reflect the nature and scope of a particular company. The contents of Article of Association are, first of all, it has division of share. It holds certain procedures of holding and conducting the meeting. It includes voting rights of members and rules regarding the method of votings. It also includes the matters related to appointment, power, duties, qualifications, and also the remuneration of directors. Also, the methods to increase or decrease the capital. And the last important document needed in the formation of a company is Prospectus of Association. Prospectus means any document that is described or released as a prospectus of inviting shares or a financial release of a company. In a nutshell, the prospectus of association has two main features. It includes the company review as well as other decision-making informations. The contents of prospectus of association are: it includes date of issue of prospectus, it includes name and register office of the company, the consent of central government for the present issue compliances with the SEBI guidelines, also the voting rights, dividends and expenses on issues at a. Now, since we have discussed the important documents which needs to be submitted during the incorporation stage of a company formation, we are again heading towards the third main stage of company formation, that is capital raising stage. This is the third phase to form a company, and at this stage, the promoters of the company will decide on their company's financial structure, because managing any company with its cash value is an important task. A private company may put its money on limited company members, but a public company must follow different rules of capital connection rules. The third and the last stage of business formation company is the commencement of business stage, where you will present your business to the market. This is the fourth stage of company's construction and means that at this stage the company obtains a formal permit certificate from the registrar office for the purpose of running a particular company or a business, where the company's legal documents are certified by any registrant under section 149(1) and section 149(2), the company receives a valid business certificates. Now, talking about company's meeting. As we all know that company is an enormous institution where every matter has to be decided by the members of the company using careful consideration and prudence. So there are specific various provisions for meeting to be held so that decisions are taken place after vigilant deliberation. Meetings are the essential gathering of several persons in a particular place for the purpose of discussing important matters. So the common characteristics of meetings are having two or more persons for discussing the important matter. The previous notice should be given before commencement of the meeting at etc. Now, we have certain types or kinds of meeting, which are annual general meeting, extraordinary general meeting and board meeting. Also, we have creditors and debitors meeting too. Starting with annual general meeting, According to Section 96 of the Companies Act 2013, every company, public or private, is required to hold one general meeting in a year supervised by its director to evaluate the progress of the company and plan future course of action, which is known as annual general meeting. When it comes to extraordinary general meeting, in the section 100 of Companies Act, it lays down certain guidelines for the board to call a general meeting extraordinary in nature to deliberate upon some matter requiring immediate actions. And the board meeting in section 173 of Companies Act 2013, it provides for meeting of board of directors where they exercise their power and functions. This is to ensure that board of directors to supervise company efficiently. Now, we have a separate topic of independent director in Companies Act 2013. The Act 2013 has adapted many of the provision of clause 49 of the listing agreement and has defined the term independent director under section 247, which means a director other than a managing director or a nominee director. But why do we need an independent director in a company? Because so as to facilitate an unbiased decision making process. Now comes the eligibility criteria of independent directors, which are: the independent director of any of the company should have no relation with the company. Also, he is not the promoter of the company. He should also not be the managing director or the whole time director of the company, and also should not have any pecuniary relationship with the company. Thus, a person who is independent from company load, has expertise in the field and has sufficient time will be the best suited independent director for any company. Now, as we have seen that how independent director is important and crucial to any of the company, so there are certain lead duties of independent director. First of all, they need to manage the risk associated with certain clause of the company, to form policy and determine objective of the company, to act in good faith in order to promote the objects of the company, a duty not to gain any advantage from use of position as a director, a duty not to make any unauthorized use of company's property or information, a duty to keep proper records, also duty to call statutory and annual general meetings of the company. As we have seen the importance of independent director in any company, so how they are being appointed? Let's have a look. The independent director needs to present the consent to go about as director in form DIR2 to the company. Also, he needs to present a revelation that he or she is in procured or being appointed to be selected as a director according to arrangement of section 164(1) and 2 of the Companies Act 2013 in form DIR 8 to the company. The independent director needs to present a revelation of autonomy according to section 149(6) of the Companies Act 2013 preceding his or her arrangement. Such statement must be said before the first board meeting in which he or she takes an interest as an executive and the assuring first executive gathering in each money related year. And according to the Schedule 4 to the Companies Act 2013, the company would give the arrangement letter to independent director. Additionally, the terms and status of the independent director's arrangement must be posted on the organization site so as to make aware the other staff and employees of the appointment of the new independent director. In conclusion of the company's needs to document the assent of independent director with registrar of company inside 30 days of his or her arrangement in the form DIR 12. This was the appointment of independent director. Now how the salary or the remuneration of independent director takes place. The Company Act 2013 explicitly prohibits autonomous executives getting invested opportunities and compensation other than setting charges and repayment of movement cost for going to the board and different gatherings. Sitting expenses to be paid to independent directors for going to the board meeting in accordance with section 197(5), which is limit of rupees 1 lakh per meeting, is to be chosen by the board. Benefits related commission might be paid to autonomous chief subject to the endorsement of the investors. Also, the remuneration of independent directors is simply done by the way of a monthly payment or by either by way of a specific percentage of the net profit of the company or partially by the one way and partially by the other. Now, as we know that there were certain updates done in the new Companies Act 2013, so one of the crucial update was the introduction of single person company, which means company with only one person as a member. In section 262 of Companies Act, which defines a one person company or a single person company as a company that has only one person as its member. So a single person company is effectively a company that has only one shareholder as its member. Such companies are generally created when there is only one founder or promoter for the business. The example of single person company can be any of the entrepreneur business which start with only one person or the founder of the company which work as shareholder or the stakeholder of the company. So there are certain lead features of the single person company, such as it has only one shareholder, it has limited liability, it has easy transferability, it has separate legal entity, and of course easy funding because the funding is done on the self manner. Also, some of the other listed features of the single person company can be, first of all, it is a private company. In section 3(1)(c) of the Companies Act, it states that only one person can create a company for any purpose. It also defined OPCs, that is one person companies, as a private companies. It has one member. Of course, OPCs are only having one or the more member, unlike other private companies. It has nominees. The unique feature of OPC that distinguishes them from other type of companies is that the only member of the company should speak with the nominee while registering the company. It has no perpetual succession. With only one member in the OPC, his death will result in him being elected or denied. This does not happen to other companies as they follow the idea of eternal succession. And the last feature, which is the minimum one director. The OPCs need to have at least one person or member as a director. They can have a maximum of 15 directors also. There is a very crucial personality in a company who is responsible for all the affairs taking inside and outside the company. He is the company secretary. A company secretary is a senior position in a private sector company or any public sector organization. He is responsible for the efficient administration of the company, particularly regarding ensuring compliances with statutory and regulatory requirements and for ensuring that decisions of the board of directors are implemented in a very effective and efficient manner. Company secretary carry a crucial and complex task to cater. So, the defined rules and responsibilities of company secretary are, first of all, to help the board in the lead of the issues of the organization, to give directions to the chief about their obligations, guaranteeing and following corporate administration, guaranteeing that the organization follows secretariat principles, also to take the necessary consents from the board and different government bodies. It also has certain other rules and responsibilities like to facilitate the convening of the meeting and to attend board, committee and regular meetings, and at the same time to ensure that minutes of these meetings are kept. Obtain the approval of the board, the general meeting, the government and other authorities as required under the provision of the Act. To represent before various regulators, other authorities under the Act in respect of performing various functions under the Act. Also, he need to assist and advise the board in ensuring good corporate governance and compliances with corporate governance requirement and best practices, and last but not the least, perform other duties as under the Act or as the rule and other functions not assigned to the board from time to time manner. Another important content which we need to have a look is corporate social responsibility in Companies Act 2013. What exactly is corporate social responsibility? It can be defined as the idea of companies' social and environmental obligation, both in environmental and social manner in which the company operates. Companies can accomplish this task through the process of reducing waste and pollution, by offering educational and social programs, by being environmentally friendly and performing similar humanitarian activities. CSR is not a charitable or any charitable offering. CSR is a way of doing business where participating organizations participate in social programs. Actually, it is a concept where companies can choose to combine profit difference strategies with policies that ensure social investment, whether they improve working conditions or self-regulating mechanism to ensure a clean environment. CSR is not only about compliances with human rights standards, security and social arrangement, but also against climate change, sustainable natural resource management, consumer protection, certain efforts and volunteer projects. And when it comes to health sector, CSR had certain led crucial guidelines with reference to hospital industry, which are first of all creating wealth and promoting employment to all the sectors of the economy, protecting the investment of all the shareholders, namely the government in public hospitals, respecting the human rights in all manner, abstention of environmental damage done, implementing ethical codes of conduct, promoting reverse discrimination policies, public accountability of management decision and performance indicators, and last but not the least, engaging in national or international solidarity programs. Now, towards the end of the presentation, it is quite imperative to discuss the importance of Companies Act in healthcare. Hospitals, as we know, in fact are wealth organizations which deal with critical life-saving procedures and manages basic life-sparing systems, which makes it a significant vital working and management system. So, activities undertaken by corporates to promote healthcare will be considered as social welfare activities under the new Companies Law that came into effect in 2013, which we all know in the name of Companies Act 2013. Under this act, certain class of companies or the hospitals are required to shell out at least 2% of their 3-year annual average net profit towards corporate social responsibility activities. The Corporate Affairs Ministry, which is implementing the Companies Act, has now clarified that promoting healthcare would come under CSR ambit. So, that was all about Companies Act 2013. Thank you for your attention.